Chris Carter here on the North Shore Drive podcast for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. The Steelers play the Browns, albeit with a new rookie quarterback who Pittsburgh should be a little familiar with, considering he just played Pitt in the Sun Bowl with UCLA and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We'll break down everything you need to know about this matchup and get you ready for the weekend. Here on the North Shore Drive podcast, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Hello and welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter. I'm going to have to hold this mic. As always, we are brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar here on the North Shore Drive podcast, where I'm at right now here for your Friday episode, breaking down all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers in this upcoming matchup. Remember, at Mike's Beer Bar, it's the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. When you go to Mike's Beer Bar, be sure to check out any game you want on all the 20 different TVs that they have available, as well as over 500 different available beers, 300 of those beers being local and 80 of those local beers being available on tap. They also have amazing food options. We'll talk more about that later. Brian, the whole sports world, well, I guess in Midwestern PA or Western PA and Eastern Ohio, kind of took a big shock with the news of Deshaun Watson being out for the season. It caught everyone off guard. We talked a little bit about that with Ray Fittipaldi on the Wednesday episode, but what we did not talk about, because we didn't know at the time, was that Dorian Thompson-Robinson would be the guy that the Browns would go with to start this game. And that kind of is an interesting tone here. Now, for those who don't know, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 5th-round drafted rookie quarterback from the Browns. He was just drafted out of UCLA, where, if you remember, if you're a Pitt fan, he was the quarterback for the Bruins when they lost to the Pitt Panthers in the Sun Bowl back in December, And that was an interesting event. There was lots of, he started off really strong, threw 2 touchdowns, but then also threw 3 interceptions before he was knocked out of that game there. And he didn't look good in his earlier start for the Browns this year, and that led to them putting in PJ Walker. But Brian, is there a sense here that the Steelers need to be very wary about what the Browns could do with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, even with all the talent they still have around the roster?
I mean, sure, but and I think Kevin Stefanski's an underrated coach. I think he gets clowned a lot around here. People make fun of it that he beat the Steelers in that playoff game because he wasn't on the sideline. He was at home in COVID protocol, and his special teams coordinator, Mike Pryfer, was the acting head coach that day, and all of that. But I think the guy knows what he's doing. I think he has the right demeanor, in-game decision-making and game plans and whether to run or pass. If you've been a competitor at any level, sometimes you try stuff and it doesn't work. Right. It doesn't make you an idiot or somebody who's incompetent and incapable of doing the job. So in that sense, yes, you still need to be wary of how are the Browns going to attack you? What mismatches are they going to identify? Because it's not like the Steelers are a picture of perfect health either at the moment. Their inside linebacker core is probably one that opposing offensive play callers are going to try to exploit early and often the rest of this season. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Chris, I mean, you kind of just laid it out there. Good college quarterback, was dynamic in the Pac-12, soon to be the Pac-2. And, has some nice traits to work with. I know he kind of was one of those guys this year who got like the hipster draft buzz. It was like, all right, if you don't have a chance to get Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, or Will Levis, then who else is good? And, some analysts were like, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's number 5 in this class. But I don't know that he'll ever have what it takes in the NFL at his size. And 2, I certainly don't think he's ready for this kind of matchup and atmosphere and defense against the Steelers.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to ask here, because Deshaun Watson played the Steelers earlier this season. He threw a pick 6 and gave up 3 turnovers, I think, in the game. 2 of them went for touchdowns for the Steelers defense.
Lost his mind, started face masking everybody. I mean, yeah, it was not a great night for him in week 2.
And surely, he got better. And that's the crazy thing, is that Deshaun Watson just went off against the Ravens in the second half, went 14-14, led them on a comeback. I think they were down 24-9 at one point, and somehow they still found a way to win that game. But
just had to break his shoulder, and then all of a sudden he was very effective.
And he was just so good. but it's kind of a rough time for the Browns to go through that. And now you see that this team is going to rally around Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And you could look at the Browns roster and say, hey, they can still run the ball. Jerome Ford's been getting yards. The offensive line's still good. They still have
Kareem Hunt
defense.
looks a little bit vintage Kareem Hunt, I guess.
Yeah, he's more of the power version of Kareem Hunt, but still effective when you give him the ball in those short distance situations. And you could see a way for the Browns to say, hey, we can concoct a plan where we're competitive even with this rookie quarterback, so long as he doesn't just turn the ball over a lot. And that's where I think it's going to be up to the Steelers. Can they neutralize these other factors from the Browns roster enough to make it so that the rookie quarterback has to be able to make some tough plays in some tough situations and give the Steelers an advantage where TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, even the emerging Keanu Benton, Joey Porter Jr., maybe Micah Fitzpatrick returns for this game, that they can be the guys that once again set the tone for this game in a big game. Because here's the other part of this, Brian, is that as we're recording this, it's Thursday. We don't know the result of the Ravens-Bengals game, but whatever direction that goes, the Steelers win. They can either be in first place or second place in the AFC North and right in lockstep to put themselves in great position to the playoffs, because they'd be 7-3. They'd be 3-0 in the division. They'd have 2 games of the Bengals coming up and the Ravens. They'll have swept the Browns, who would be their closest group in competition to knocking them out of the second spot in the division. This, I think, is a huge opportunity for the Steelers. And I know there's a lot of Steelers fans out there saying, like, man, how many times have I felt that about going into a game against a backup quarterback and it not working out in their favor? What are the things that you've covered the Steelers for a while? What are the things that you've seen in some of the contests when the Steelers have fallen short to like a Ryan Finley or a Ryan Mallett, when they faced such a player?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a comparison to make, and Joe Starkey, I believe, is writing about that for us, or it's probably online by the time people watch this. You're right, Chris. We're recording this Thursday, so we don't know what happened in the other AFC North clash last night. We don't know if the Browns signed Matt Ryan. We don't know the Steelers injury report from Thursday or the Browns injury report, because here's what I'm getting at. They're dealing with more than just the Deshaun Watson injury. They're dealing with no Jack Conklin, obviously their right tackle, out for the year, but also left tackle Jed Wills is on injured reserve too. Jaron Christian started last game for them at left tackle, if I'm not mistaken. And fun fact about him, he's appeared in one other NFL game this season. That was week 4 for the Houston Texans against the Steelers when they were going through a similar situation. Yes, they had their QB in CJ Stroud. He's not a backup. He's not Ryan Finley or Ryan Mallett or Anthony Brown, but he was a rookie, and Mike Tomlin, until that game, had not lost to a rookie quarterback in 9 tries. I think it was 2015 was the last time, but he's playing behind a bunch of journeyman or rookie inexperienced linemen. Austin Deculus, who I think was their left tackle in that game, has already since been cut by the Texans. So that kind of just shows you the state of what things were back in late September in Houston. And the Steelers still couldn't get to Stroud much, and we know the result of that game. They got lambasted. It was quick game stuff. It was establishing the ground game for Houston that day, perimeter runs, and a really accurate quarterback. That's where I think the gap is going to exist between Stroud and Thompson-Robinson. And I don't blame the Browns for going with him, because I think in a one-game scenario, maybe you feel like PJ Walker's a better backup to step in because he's been there and done that. But now that Watson's out for the season, you probably have to try to generate some momentum and build around DTR, as they call him, and figure out the best way to utilize him in the offense. So, I think back to that Cincy game in 2020 with Ryan Finley, and the offense didn't play particularly well that night either, so that doesn't help. If you don't get complimentary football, that can stress your defense. But yeah,
that would totally happen again. It's not like the Steelers offense does that every week or anything.
Yeah, what are the odds they won't be able to move the ball against Myles Garrett and Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson? But yeah, so that's kind of the recipe, I think, for the Browns. Whether you the Steelers have started the game with the ball, I don't know how many times in a row now, but I think it was LA and Jacksonville, they opted to receive. And then this past week, they lost the toss. And of course, whatever team they just played, deferred. But
Packers.
Yes, Green Bay. That just shows you how forgettable the 2023 Green Bay Packers are. Like they were truly nameless gray faces. But either way, they opted to defer, of course, and Steelers with the opening drive. Oh, they obviously had the ball first too against Tennessee, right? Because they went right down the field with Matt Canada on the sideline. So regardless of if the Browns start with it or if the Steelers start with it, I assume Cleveland's going to try to gash the Steelers in the run game. But with Elandon Roberts and either Mark Robinson or Michael Walker next to him, that's an area where the Steelers should be able to bow up and not let Cleveland impose its will. And defensively, just make life hell for Kenny Pickett and company, as they tend to do to a lot of quarterbacks right now.
It certainly could be the factor into this game, is just making life really hard for DTR. Can they get after him, make him uncomfortable, make him make mistakes, and kind of make this all about the Browns offense having to work with their rookie quarterback instead of the Steelers working with their second-year quarterback? We'll get more into Kenny Pickett in just a minute here on the North Shore Drive podcast as we get to some of your questions here on the show. But as always, we also got to remind you that when we do this show on Mike's Beer Bar, we have our Friday flights where we talk about over 500 different available beers. We mean it, because they have all the different beers and they're changing them out weekly. This week's Friday flights include multiple beers. If you're trying to watch the Steelers game, you can't make it to Cleveland, come to Mike's Beer Bar. You can try out some of these beers like Voodoo's Oh Mama, which is very, very much a reference to the Renegade song that pumps up Steelers fans during the game. You can drink a Voodoo Brewery Oh Mama. It's an American lager, 6%, available right here at Mike's Beer Bar, along with other beers like the 11th Hour's Triple Jack IPA, which is a 10%er, or you can switch it up. Go with an apple pie sour from Union Brothers, or Two Phrase Jen's Porter, all of those in the 5% beer range. But that's the thing. You can go from IPAs to American lagers to sour beers to porters. Whatever you want is available here at Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. And they have over 20 televisions. So if you want to watch the Steelers game while you're keeping an eye on a different game, this is the perfect place to do that. So do that here. Try all the different available beers and try out all the amazing food they have here, as well as when we talk about the steak on a stone meal. It's perfect. You order your choice cut of steak. It comes on a heated stone right in front of you. And as you're eating it, you're just cutting off piece by piece, pressing each piece into the stone. That heats up the piece to whatever wellness you want on your steak. And then you can enjoy it however you like with every single bite. Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. Come here on the North Shore. It's right across the street from PNC Park on Federal Street. And when you get here to Mike's Beer Bar, tell them Chris sent you. We're back here in the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Brian Batko, one of our great Steelers beat writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We are now bringing you the Acrisure Fan Advantage question of the week. Remember, the Fan Advantage is bringing you closer to the team all season long, featuring exclusive answers to your burning questions from Steelers insider Brian Batko, as well as in-depth conversations with an opponent expert each week. We'll have that coming out this Saturday. It's going to be a fun talk there. But let's get into this question here, Brian, because you got a question that was that kind of brought up some interesting points, and the thing that everyone's kind of talking about right now. Kyle from Pottsville asking, if Kenny Pickett does not improve, do you see the Steelers signing a free agent in the offseason or possibly drafting someone to compete with him? It's an interesting question that a lot of people are starting to ask with every game that Kenny Pickett does not blow up and have his big moment.
Yeah, and I also, in my mailbag on the Post-Gazette website, the written mailbag, got a question about, is it true that the Steelers might consider making a run at Kyler Murray this offseason? And I don't think so. That would surprise me on a lot of fronts. But it kind of just shows that the Steelers fan base is discontent with the QB play. And Joe Starkey had a good lead into his mailbag this week. Remember, this is all hypothetical world that we're living in right now. But sometimes it's fun to do that. His question was, who would be the Steelers starting quarterback right now if it wasn't Kenny Pickett? If they had not drafted him last year, who would it be? So that was interesting to read and think about too. I guess you could put Kyler Murray in that ring, but that's just a lot of butterfly effect type stuff. Let's spin it forward a little bit to that question from Kyle, which I did not have time to get to in my chat on Monday. Thank you, Kyle. I don't think so. I think the drafting of Kenny, the re-signing this offseason of Mitch Trubisky was kind of a 2-year plan. well, not the drafting of Kenny, but this offseason re-signing Mitch Trubisky to a 2-year extension, and obviously keeping Kenny as the starter, I think was a 2-year plan in the sense that, let's just be honest, I don't think Matt Canada is coming back next year as the offensive coordinator.
We've said that for a while now.
Yeah. Well, better results lately aside, it's still not great. So I'm not going to get too excited about 23 points against the Packers at home. Not going to get too excited about opening game drives now that he's gone from the booth to the sideline. Like, I still think you're going to have to see if a different play caller and play designer can elevate your first round quarterback to a different stratosphere next season. So that to me is why, you give Kenny Pickett year 3 almost no matter what. Could there be a scenario in which it just, completely implodes? I mean, sure. I can't predict the future. I don't think that's going to happen, but almost no matter what, I think Kenny's the starter again in 2024. Again, probably with a different mind calling the shots offensively. And you do run the risk at that point of like, hey, there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be adjustment to a new offense or new language, new verbiage, whatever. But I kind of think that's not really an issue for Kenny Pickett at this stage of his career. He should be able to make a somewhat seamless transition to somebody new. And, you'll still have that evidence to kind of make your decision for the future. So I don't think they would sign anybody new. I think they're comfortable with Trubisky in the backup role and vice versa. The idea of drafting someone's a little more intriguing because if Mason Rudolph's not back again as QB3, you need somebody in that capacity.
Right.
And, do you use a late round pick on a guy? And if you do you want somebody with upside, or do you want somebody who's, like a 4th or 5th year college quarterback who you feel like, hey, he could essentially be Mason Rudolph for this room? We'll dive into stuff like that more closer to draft time, but it is it's worth noting and thinking about right now. And to be frank, any rookie QB who gets brought in here, there are going to be questions and people wondering, is he going to have a chance to eventually unseat Trubisky and possibly even Pickett if he plays well? That's just a natural thing that goes with it, especially at that position.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Calvin Pottsville for your question on that situation. Brian Batko with the answer. I'm in lockstep with you. I don't think they give up on Kenny Pickett after this year. I think they do try to revamp not just Matt Canada, but a lot of the offensive staff next year to try and see what they have. And if things aren't clicking by the end of next season, then I think that they explore more of the road of what they need to do.
And remember, after next season, they would have to make the decision on his 5th-year option as a first-round pick. So
exactly. And that's where I think that they're willing to take the time. Plus, it's like the other thing is I fully expect this offseason, they're going to invest more into the offense. They're probably going to, I can see them drafting a high pick on another offensive lineman, maybe using some free agency money there or getting another wide receiver. There could be a lot of moves that change what this offense even looks like. And that's what I fully expect to kind of happen along with the switching up of some of the offensive staff. So this could be a whole new look offense next year. And that's when you might want to say, okay, let's see what Kenny Pickett has now that he has 2 years of NFL experience and more weapons and protection around him.
And obviously scouting is an inexact science, as they always say, but you look at it like a science experiment to some degree. You're removing variables at this point, and eventually you're drilling down to the quarterback variable, and what is that? How is that performing based on all the things that are changing around him? So that's just yet another reason why I'd be stunned if they make any sort of big move at quarterback this offseason to replace Kenny Pickett, or even, as Kyle mentioned, provide legitimate competition for him.
Absolutely. We're on the same page here. That's the Acrisure Fan Advantage. We're all season long. Brian is answering your burning questions. You can submit those questions to acrisure.com/fan advantage for more information. Stay tuned for this weekend when we preview the Steelers Browns game with a Browns expert that gives you an update on how they're handling the backup quarterback situation. But enough talk about that. we're about to get into our preview and picks of this game here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. First, I want to remind you this show, while we are hosted in Mike's Beer Bar this weekend, we're also brought to you by Savina's Kane and Gallucci. They're mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them now for a free consultation. That's Savina's Kane and Gallucci. We're also brought to you by GameTime.co, where buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, and comedy events and theater events near you. If you ever had to buy tickets at the last minute, you sometimes wonder, what does it look like from those seats? Am I actually getting what I'm really paying for here? That's where Game Time, as an app you can download right to your phone, comes in, because it'll show you the view from the seats. It'll show you what that looks like, and you're not getting hit with any hidden fees. The prices that you see on the Game Time app are exactly what you'll pay. It's 2 taps of a button. Those tickets are yours, even if you're running late to up to an hour after your event has started. Get on Game Time for all the best prices, and they give you the best prices. They guarantee it, because if you find the same event, you find the tickets in the same section and row at the same event for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PITTPIT for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code PITTPIT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast, Chris Carter, Brian Batko, talking Steelers Browns here. Brian, the Browns are 1.5-point favorites here in this matchup. The line will probably be moving all throughout the weekend as we get more and more information, and Vegas starts to adjust to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But typically, the saying is always that Vegas gives the home team 3 points here. So maybe Vegas has already kind of moved the line to say that, hey, the Steelers kind of might be the better team in this situation. But when you look at this, what is the biggest factor the Steelers have to get down in this game if they want to win?
Well, I do think it's the offense, because you're probably going to be able to at least keep the Browns offense in check, I would hope. I mean, they might be able to hit some big plays here and there or sustain some drives if the running game gets rolling. But I mean, the Steelers, they don't even let very good offenses convert in the red zone touchdowns very often. They're a bend but don't break unit for sure. They're one of the best at it, holding so many teams to field goals. I think you're going to see a lot of that from Cleveland. But you can't let this be a game where you're going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and even a defense that should really have the advantage here. Not just health wise, but against a rookie quarterback who's made one start. That could put them in a situation where they aren't at their best, where they can, be prone to lapses a little bit more than they normally would be. So I typically go for the make some splash plays or don't turn it over mantra. But I think today, you just need Sunday, I think you just need the offense to possess the ball a decent amount and don't go out there and give this Browns team confidence to get rolling with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think all the confidence in the world won't necessarily make him somebody who makes you forget about Deshaun Watson anytime soon. But it's going to be a raucous environment. It's going to be a really good crowd, I think, for them supporting the Browns. The funny or awkward thing about it is probably a decent amount of Browns fans, Chris, who feel even more enthused about rooting for their team now that Deshaun Watson will not be taking snaps for them. That was a controversial issue for a lot of them when they signed him. So there might be an actual renewed vigor and passion in the fan base to that degree. But just don't play into their hands and give them ammunition with certainly not with any turnovers. We know the Steelers team, the biggest ingredient is 12 cups of turnover-free football. So you got to have more of that. And, if I do look at anything from the defensive side of the ball, I just say, don't let them run it down your throat, because, then you just get the field tilted a little bit, and that's when it could get away from you.
I'm right with you. And I think particularly the Steelers run offense too. They've gotten better over the last 3 weeks or so. Broderick Jones told us about how the meetings that they've had with the running back room has helped them. You saw
Broderick's just talking though.
Just talking. He's an oversized toddler, according to Mike Tomlin. But when you look at how they've improved, they ran over 200 yards last week against the Packers. Not a team that strikes fear into the heart of all rushing offenses, but it's still a defense that they've gained 200 yards against. They were doing that against anybody, and I think it could be interesting if they can I don't see them putting up 200, but if they can run the ball efficiently against this Browns defense, it could be a very good sign for them moving forward. All that being said, Brian, give us your final score prediction and how you see it playing out.
Yeah, I don't think the Browns are going to let them do that. I think they're going to stack the box, and they're going to say, look, if you think you can do this, if you think you can do this for the third game in a row against our defense, stacking the box, good luck to you. Yeah, they're going to make KP8 make some throws, prove the accuracy is there, prove the field reading, progressions, decision making is there, and I think there will be enough of that to get a win. But I'm not going to – it's like predicting the Steelers to have a losing season. I can't predict the Steelers to win a game by more than one possession until I actually see it, Carter. Like, I'll be late on it. That's fine. But I'll probably be right a lot more until I'm wrong. So I'm going to go Steelers 20, Browns 18 in a field goal fest for the Kevin Stefanski crew. Maybe 18 won't be a good number if he gets aggressive in some short yardage, knowing that he doesn't really have – a lot to work with at quarterback, but we'll see. 2-point dub on the road in Cleveland.
Our friend Wes Euler brought up a good point to me after the last game when it was 23-19. He's like, every week when we're asked predictions, we give these 21-14s, 20-17s, and all these clean scores. They're never the clean scores. They're always the weird looking ugly ones. So I'm going to pick a weird looking ugly one. And I'm going to say 19-12 Steelers. 4 field goals from the Browns. I don't know how the Steelers even get 19, but they're finding a way to get it. I'm right with you, though. It's a one-score game. Goes down to the wire. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to have the ball in his hands with 2 minutes to go, and the Steelers defense is going to look immaculate late again for making a rookie quarterback look bad when the game is on the line.
Who gets the pick at the goal line this time? I mean, that would be the question, I guess.
All right. Roll with me now.
I got mine. Larry Ogunjobi.
Michael Walker, baby. Let's go.
I've got Larry Ogunjobi with a batted pass to himself, pulling it down for the pick.
That would be pure Steelers
against his former team.
Yeah, right there. That would be pure Steelers football right there. A defensive lineman getting a pick at the end of the game. He's Brian Batko. I'm Chris Carter. We're both of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for tuning in to the Friday episode of the North Shore Drive podcast. We've been here at Mike's Beer Bar. Make sure you're here at Mike's Beer Bar over the weekend if you want to watch some of the crazy action that'll be going on in the NFL, or maybe on Thursday Night Football. You were here in the first place anyways, watching some Ravens Bengals. Either way, I'll be back on this Saturday for the Acrisure Fan Advantage, talking with a Browns expert, getting you ready for that game. And then Sunday, 1 p.m. in Cleveland is the big game. Paul Zeiss, Adam Bittner will have you right after the game. We'll have our guys at the stadium breaking things down. And, of course, we'll have the Monday episode with myself and Ray Fittipaldo breaking things down even further. Thanks again for tuning into the North Shore Drive podcast. We'll be back with you very soon.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.